Americans love chicken.
There it is, fresh chicken and poultry.
We eat 9 billion every year, more than any other meat.
Now, this little chicken is about 19 days old. He's in good health.
Our chickens are well taken care of, and our farmers are happy.
We think they're very comfortable.
At least, that's what we're sold.
It's red and it's raw.
You don't mess with Mother Nature. Something's gonna give.
This farmer has decided to blow the whistle on how chickens are raised.
The objective of this way of farming is to do it as cheap as possible. It's not about quality of life.
But what we thought was going to be a story about animal welfare
It looks like it's having a hard time breathing.
turned out to be much more.
So the companies are making money, but you guys are not.
Right.
This is a story about the American farmer, living on the edge.
Farmers are miserable. So there's two ways to control a man, a debt and a sword. And at this point in time, I think I'd opt for the sword.
And what happens when he takes on one of America's most powerful industries.
And naturally, they don't like me speaking out.
If you're around here personally attack me like I have seen.
When you don't have money to buy food for your kids, it's a hard thing to stomach.
When those lobbyists go in there and they've got on $2,000 or $3,000 suits, and you just had 20 chicken growers go in there in blue jeans, guess who wins?
It's time for this industry to have what I call a come to Jesus moment. Right now.
For 22 years, Craig Watts has been growing chickens in North Carolina for one of America's biggest poultry companies, Purdue Farms.
I'll come in and I'll do this. See how that's pretty level.
Today, he's taking us inside his broiler house where the chickens are grown. It's a rare glimpse inside the industrial farming practices behind America's favorite meat.
Welcome to my office.
I don't think you realize how big this is until you're actually in here. So how many chickens in here?
Roughly 30,000.
30,000. And you have 4 of these houses, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Our viewers won't have a chance to actually smell what we're smelling right now. But my throat is burning, my nose, my eyes. It's a really powerful smell.
Craig has invited us here because after 2 decades in the business, he's convinced that the way chickens are being raised on factory farms like this just isn't right.
And they live out here,
Do nothing.
crap out here,
Yeah.
they do everything.
Yep.
Craig has 4 broiler houses like this one, growing 720,000 chickens for Purdue every year.
And in 6 weeks, how big will they be?
4 pounds, 4 1/4 pounds, somewhere in that range.
So about twice the size?
Over twice the size.
How much space will they have to roam around then?
I mean, you can do the math. There's 20,000 square feet, 30,000 chickens. That's 2/3 of a square foot, which is a sheet of notebook paper.
That's it?
That's it.
One of the first things you notice is how many birds are sick and dying.
The leg just sticks out.
Many
Yeah,
have
I didn't
crooked
see the
legs,
joints. Is it really...
and some can't even stand.
I'm sorry. So you see, like there's complete lack of feathers.
Right. That's from sitting on that litter all the time. You know, this is actually composting right now, which means it's building up a heat.
It's really sort of looks like it's having a hard time breathing.
Yeah.
I'm no veterinarian, but this is definitely not what you expect when you think of the chickens that you eat.
Americans eat 9 billion chickens a year. To keep up with demand, the industry uses specially bred birds that grow faster and fatter than ever. If a human were to grow as fast, by age 2 months, it would weigh 660 pounds.
These are obese animals, so over time they've been selectively bred to be fat.
Leah Garces is an animal welfare activist with Compassion in World Farming. Craig invited her to his farm to expose how he says chickens are really bred and raised.
The objective of this way of farming is to do it as fast as possible, as cheap as possible. It's not about quality of life.
What are these? Are these windows?
They used to be. We call them curtains, but this is basically a window. There used to be a winch mounted there. So I could let all this down at one time and I could raise it up at one time. There was no solid wall on the inside. All this, now there's insulation behind it, but behind this is just chicken wire.
So you'd be able to open it, they'd get natural sunlight and fresh air.
Yeah.
Craig says that in 2006, Purdue requested he close the windows to give the birds a safer environment. He says if he didn't, he'd make less money.
If they're running around and the sunlight creates activity in them and excitement and they are enjoying themselves, they're going to be leaner, they're going to be healthier, they're not going to be fatter, and therefore there's less money to be made on them. No normal person would walk into this scenario and think, this is humane. This is the most humane way to get a bird from egg to shelf.
There it is, fresh chicken and poultry. So here we have chicken breasts, which actually quite heavy, the most popular meat in the US. And you see the Purdue brand raised cage-free. That's the label. You can see it clearly right here. But Purdue has another brand, which they call their all-natural brand. And here it's labeled, you can see humanely raised and raised cage-free.
Last fall, Purdue agreed to stop marketing its chickens as humanely raised. While Craig's chickens aren't sold retail, he says that selective breeding, lack of sunlight and space, and the whole corporate farming system inherently makes this far from humane.
What do you think is the image that companies are selling that are different from the reality, from what you see?
Well, I mean, you've got this nice red barn and a nice white chicken and a nice white fence and all natural and cage-free. There's not a broiler in the United States of America raised for meat that's raised in a cage. That's much ado about nothing. The hens that lay the eggs are in cages. The birds that are raised for meat are not, never have been. So they're just putting something on the label. They're just playing the public for fools. That's what it boils down to.
So looking at this, Craig, you might think, you see all these birds suffering, you see the deformities, you might think that it's your responsibility, it's your fault that these birds are being treated this way.
I raise 720,000 chickens a year, and I don't own a chicken. Genetics, that's Purdue. Feed, that's Purdue. The whole grow out program is Purdue. I have to ask Purdue permission of what kind of equipment I put in my houses. You know, it's my money, yeah, their ball game though.
Here's how industrial chicken farming works. Companies usually own the breed of bird, the hatchery where chicks are born, the chickens they deliver to the farmer, the mills that make the feed farmers use. They own the slaughterhouse, often even the trucking lines that deliver the meat to markets. The farmer has no control over what chicks he's given and little say in how they're raised.
So if you receive a group of chickens that arrives and has disease and has problems and they start dying,
right?
Who would eventually suffer from that?
I would.
Who would take the cost?
I would.
Purdue says that it does occasionally compensate for bad chickens, and that it reimbursed Craig once last spring. But Craig says that he still loses money.
So what happens to all these chickens that you see? Are they going to survive at all?
No, I'll take them out. I will euthanize them.
Why?
Well, I mean, he's not going to be able to access the feed and water. He will survive, you know, several days, but then, you know, he'll be suffering. So you just hold him by his legs, and it's that quick. Now they say right now,
is it still flapping?
Well, they say he's dead right now.
How does that feel like for you to have to go around and kill all these chickens?
Disheartening on two levels. One, that you're having to do this to a live animal, and two, that you know, I know it's going to hurt me financially.
So every single one of these birds that you kill is less money that you're making?
Oh, yeah.
But still you think it's necessary to kill them?
Psychologically and financially. It's a hit for me, you know.
So what you're saying is that while the price of chicken has been growing, the amount that you've been paid, that has not been growing accordingly to the amount of chicken?
The gap's getting much wider.
How can this be a win-win situation when 71% of farmers are living below the poverty line?
Which poverty line are you referring to?
So this is the first paperwork that Craig ever got from Purdue. And it says the Purdue story, and then the first picture you see inside is this chicken. It's very different from the chickens that you have growing in these houses.
Craig is one of almost 30,000 contract chicken farmers across the U.S. They grow 93% of the chickens we eat.
I always lived here right on this farm. My dad and I farmed. We were on a small tobacco farm just like everybody else in this part of the world was.
After graduating from college, Craig came back home.
Well, I kind of got the bug to stay, and it was the exact moment when Purdue was advertising in the paper about building chicken houses.
In 1991, Purdue, the third largest chicken company in the country, offered Craig a seemingly dream deal to live and work on the family's farm and make a good living.
I mean, that was manna from heaven that gave me. I'm not a suit and tie guy. I do have a business degree, so it was kind of a good fit, I thought.
Craig and his wife Amelia had to borrow around $200,000 to build the chicken houses, but he says Purdue assured him he'd be able to make that money back in 10 years.
I used to be much faster.
For the first few years, Craig worked around the clock to build up his business and pay off his loans.
When he first built the chicken houses, he was optimistic. He was excited. He was looking forward to good things happening.
But then he was encouraged by Purdue to expand his operation to make more money. This is when Craig says he first realized he was in trouble.
The first big red flag was '94 when I built the second two houses and settled the first flock, and the money didn't double, and the expenses more than doubled. That was an issue.
The next year, Craig struggled with bills. He was $400,000 in debt. Since then, he says his take-home after expenses has fluctuated wildly. One year, $67,000, another year, under $3,000. 71% of chicken farmers who rely solely on growing chickens live at or below the poverty line. If his wife weren't a teacher, Craig says, he'd be even deeper in debt. This was in part because of the unrealistic numbers he says the company sold him on.
The numbers that they presented us, I don't know where he even got them from. But that's what I took to the bank, and that's what I took to the accountant.
While the price of chicken has gone up, the price Craig gets paid for chicken hasn't.
What's all this?
And this is a graph for the price of poultry from 2000 to 2013, and you can see we're well over $1 a pound. And it was
it's almost doubled, right?
Yeah.
Since 2000, the average annual market price of chicken, that's the price the companies sell it for, has risen 70%. The price Craig gets paid has only gone up 11%.
So what you're saying is that while the price of chicken has been growing, the amount that you've been paid, that has not been growing accordingly to
Oh, no, the gap's getting much wider as we go.
So the companies such as Purdue are making money, but you guys are not.
Right.
In 2013, Purdue's revenue was $6 billion.
You know, I'm not much for reliving the past. It's the past. What's behind us is not important. But if I could have one brief moment in December of '91 back, instead of saying, my goodness, where did I sign? I would say, no, thank you. That's the moment I'd like to have back.
Hi, Tom.
Hi,
Mariana.
Tom Super with the Chicken Council.
The National Chicken Council is a DC organization that represents the chicken industry. We wanted to know why the majority of farmers who grow only chicken are living below the poverty line.
How can this be a win-win situation when the chicken industry is making the highest profits in history and still 71% of farmers are living below the poverty line?
Which poverty line are you referring to? Is that a national poverty line? Is that a state poverty line? Poverty line in Mississippi and Alabama is different than it is in New York City.
Poverty line is poverty line. It means they are living below the poverty line. It still doesn't bode well whether it's state or federal.
Sometimes they raise other crops. Sometimes members of the family have other jobs, or the farmer himself, can have another job. So it's typically not the sole source of income.
So you think enough is being done for these chicken farmers?
I think that a chicken farmer can make a decent living, a good living, a hard-earned living. Farming is not easy.
I don't like deceit. I don't like being part of something that's being sold for something that's absolutely not.
When you owe $1 million on chicken houses, the only possible way that you can pay for that is to have chickens and raise chickens. And the companies know that.
Every time that I've spoke out against the poultry companies, they retaliate.
And now you're speaking out.
Yeah.
Are you afraid of any consequences?
No. I'll just say I'm prepared for hardball.
So it's 4 a.m. It's a night where they've come to pick up the chickens for slaughter. So we've set up all these hidden cameras inside the warehouse, and they're picking up the chickens right now.
Craig has invited us to film this.
Now, is that going to last how long?
We're doing it undercover because he's nervous. Even though this is his farm, he worries what would happen if Purdue knew.
I'd be lying if I said I wasn't apprehensive right now. I'm 48 and start life over probably.
Corporate farming interests try to make filming like this illegal in 26 states. They've succeeded in 7 of them, citing health and safety concerns. He's not ready to go public and take on the multi-billion-dollar chicken industry. Still, Craig wants us to see. Our cameras are a bit far, but what's happening here is that the chickens are being sucked onto a conveyor belt. And from here, the birds are taken to Purdue's slaughterhouse just 20 miles away. This happens 300,000 times a year around America.
It's definitely mass production of chicken meat. It's not farming, not to me.
We wanted to hear Purdue's take on Craig's claims. Julie DeYoung is the company's spokeswoman.
Julie, can we show you some photos real quick? You can scroll through and see some of the deformities and some of what we saw. Is this humane for Purdue? If this gentleman's flock had higher than average mortality rates, that's something that would certainly get attention. So either they were not above average, or what you were seeing was an anomaly or staged for your benefit.
It was definitely not staged for our benefit, but this grower actually did on several occasions, and there's evidence of him contacting his flock manager, telling him that there was a problem with the flock, there were leg problems with the flock, and still nothing was done.
I can't comment to that because you haven't provided me that information to know what grower, what flock.
Craig asked us not to reveal his name yet because he feared retribution. Still, we wanted to know what the company thought of the conditions.
So, but you don't think that this is the norm? I don't think so, no.
Purdue agreed to take us to a farm it says is more typical. Turns out it's just 43 miles away from Craig's farm.
This little chicken is about 19 days old. I just picked him up, and he doesn't like being held. He likes running around with his buddies.
This farm that Purdue took us to looked very different from Craig's.
We think they're very comfortable, and I guess that's what makes them happy.
We didn't see any deformed or dying birds here.
Out of 30,000 birds to a house, I would expect some portion to be the occasional leg deformity, but it hasn't been a problem for us.
And we saw fewer apparent financial struggles. It was an all-round newer, more diversified operation.
We fall into that category of doing a very good job. I know other people that struggle and don't do as well, and they don't get paid as much. But we are able to make more money because we do better.
But many people believe the way the majority of chicken farmers are paid is unfair. Critics call it a peculiar system known as the tournament, and it pits farmers against each other. Here's how it works. Farmers are divided into groups. The company decides a base price it will pay for chickens from all those farms. Then farmers compete to get more of the money. They aren't competing to grow the healthiest or most humane chickens. The goal is to raise chickens to the right weight at the lowest cost. Those who do get paid the most. But that means other farmers get paid less, even below the base price. Farmers at the top can get 70% more than those at the bottom. For the company, it's a zero-sum game where most of the risk is transferred to the farmer.
When I was working on
Dudley Butler is a former Department of Agriculture administrator and a lawyer who represents farmers against chicken companies.
Sure, they give a bonus to somebody over here, but then they give a discount to somebody over here, sometimes to the point to where they can't even pay their light bill. There are many that are not even making minimum wage, and they're in debt hundreds of thousands of dollars.
But couldn't Purdue be doing more for these farmers?
Producers can change. They can voluntarily grow for some other company.
But again, don't you think that Purdue could be doing a little bit more for these farmers?
You know, Purdue is a company that has obligations to our employees as well as to our shareholders and to our customers. And you know, we're not a nonprofit.
Other farmers who have spoken out are concerned for Craig.
I would say that he will be retaliated against. Every time that I've spoke out against the poultry companies and the wrongdoings, they retaliate by cutting my pay, cutting my chickens back, cutting the quality of my chickens that I get.
This man is contracted by another chicken company. He's too scared to reveal which one or to show his face.
They will try to force him into submission by cutting his pay, and they will come in and they will start nitpicking him in his chicken houses, harassing him, and making his life miserable.
He says the intimidation is often subtle and gets the farmers where it really hurts.
When you don't have money to go to the store to buy food for your kids, it's a pretty hard thing to stomach.
When you get in a situation where you've got 40 acres of land and you owe $1 million on chicken houses, the only possible way that you can pay for that is to have chickens and raise chickens. And the companies know that. So you, in essence, are an indentured servant, a sharecropper, if you will.
I'm a slave to Purdue on my own farm. Debt makes a man very pliable. I always said there's two ways to control a man, a debt and a sword. And at this point in time, I think I'd opt for the sword. It's quick and painless. It's time for this industry to have what I call the come to Jesus moment. It's right now is the time. Farmers are miserable.
After 22 years of being a farmer, Craig has had enough. He knows he might lose his farm, but for him, it's time to speak out against the poultry industry, whatever the consequences.
You said that people like you who have spoken out have been crucified.
Sure.
And now you're speaking out.
Yeah.
You're afraid of any consequences?
No.
I didn't kill him, I just made him disappear.
But you didn't kill him.
I'm the magic man. Quit.
I've thought this through and through, and I'm not going into it flippantly. I'll just say I'm prepared for hardball.
The company lied.
That's what we were trying to do, just level the playing field and make it a fair system.
It's not about being efficient, it's about being pliable. These guys are about control. One more time. I'll come up one. Do up strokes, that way you won't be hitting another string. Can you just guitar? It's still G. Can you form that chord?
That's it.
The way I got smart was reading comic books.
I want to be Superman.
Yeah. I think I'd like to be the Hulk because I know a few people I'd like to get mad with.
Craig is getting ready to take on one of the most profitable and powerful industries in the U.S., agribusiness. With $2 trillion in annual sales from an increasingly consolidated industry, its political influence is mighty.
You know, the little farmers don't have the power 50 years ago, 60 years ago, farmers were a powerful, powerful group, but not now.
In 2010, President Obama appointed Dudley Butler, a cattle rancher and lawyer for farmers, to head up a commission whose goal was to make farming more fair.
And the judicial branch. That's what we were trying to do. Just level the playing field. Nothing extraordinary. Just level the playing field and make it a fair system.
It was a priority for the Obama administration, and they assigned Attorney General Eric Holder and Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack to work with Butler to reform the system.
We as American farmers are not receiving our fair share of the markets.
They toured the country listening to hundreds of farmers. Thousands more sent testimonies.
Spoken to numerous growers about attending this meeting, but most of them were afraid to come for fear of retribution from their poultry company.
The company lied. When you put numbers down on a piece of paper to get the bankers to loan you the money, and then it don't follow through, how do you make bank payments?
After months of hearings, Butler and his team proposed two main reforms to existing regulations: pay farmers more fairly and prevent retaliation against farmers. The Obama administration seemed committed to change.
The Justice Department, as well as the USDA, and this entire administration is committed to protecting competition very, very vigorously.
I knew when I went up there, you know, it was going to be the epic struggle. I knew what it would take to get this done.
Butler says the pushback was almost immediate.
One of the reasons that we opposed what you proposed was we still believe in the Constitution.
His opponents in agribusiness were well prepared. In 2010 alone, the time Butler was pushing the reforms, the 5 biggest meat companies spent nearly $9 million on lobbying.
When those lobbyists go in there and they've got on $2,000 or $3,000 suits and they go in and talk to some of these senators and representatives, and you just had 20 chicken growers go in there in blue jeans and paid their own way to get up to Washington, to talk to somebody, to literally beg somebody for help, guess who wins?
The key reforms Butler and his team proposed failed, and 3 years after his appointment, he resigned.
I felt very lonely at times when I was trying to fight this battle that I thought that the administration brought me to Washington to fight, to level the playing field, and the support was just wavering away. It's all about the money. It's all about the donations. It's all about the power.
Since then, no federal rules or laws have been implemented to reform the pay system or protect farmers who speak out.
If I get crucified for telling the truth, so be it. It's a pretty good company. That's the way, I mean, you know, life isn't fair. It kicks you in the teeth, and even if you're on the right side of it, the question is not whether it's fair. The question is, are you going to get up and do something about it? I think it's almost going to have to be a start over. I think we're past the rewind button here.
In December, he did it. Craig, along with an animal welfare group called Compassion in World Farming, released this video detailing what he calls the inhumane conditions for chickens on factory farms.
No, they're not happy.
The press called him the whistleblower farmer. The New York Times attacked the chicken industry.
This is funny. Torture a single chicken and you risk arrest. Abuse hundreds of thousands of chickens for their entire lives. That's agribusiness. That's it in a nutshell.
Purdue came out swinging, saying that Craig did not follow company guidelines and that he'd failed to provide appropriate animal care.
9, 10, 11, 12, 13 visits. And they don't work weekends.
Why would a poultry company do bad things to a poultry grower?
If you want to take issue with this farm, that's a bunch of crap.
Well, the answer to that's simple. You do it to one, you send a message.
On December 3rd, Craig Watts went public with his allegations against corporate chicken farming. and in less than 24 hours, Purdue inspectors have shown up at his farm. Craig has his surveillance camera recording nearly all the time. After Purdue's 4th visit in just 9 days, he becomes visibly upset.
What's going on? Hey, Craig. How are you doing? I'm doing well. I mean, if y'all looking for something to come pin on me, I don't understand. Look, if you're around here picking and looking and you're gonna personally attack me like I have seen, you've been down here enough, he's been down here enough, and you've been down here enough. Now, if you want to take issue with this farm, that's a bunch of crap. Because if I was such a terrible manager, I wouldn't have been around for 22 years. You've had good flocks and done a very good job in the past.
Very good flocks, done a pretty good job. This is a Purdue manager saying Craig Watts did a good job for him. It's not a printout that I could manipulate, not that I have sense enough to do that. There's no gray area here. That's what the man said.
Craig Watts is now a whistleblower. He's trying to keep a normal life.
What up, Jenny Bug? You see the evil gnome at school today?
Nope.
The evil gnome was going to get you this morning. He said, I'm scared.
I would.
I'll wait till in the morning.
But being a whistleblower comes at a cost.
I just got a phone call from the guy that helps me, and Purdue is back at my farm again today, which means that is 4 visits in 4 days. The USDA Tuesday, the third-party auditor yesterday. Both audits clean for whatever reason. They seem to feel like they need to come back again. Just another day at the office. Just very annoying, very insulting. But
each time they visit, Purdue inspectors go through Craig's farm looking for possible problems with his chickens and his houses.
last time they came out for an inspection, I got wrote up for dusty light bulbs. I have 75 light fixtures in one house, and there were 3 with dust on them. This is this flock. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 visits. And my birds are 21 days old, so I'm getting... And they don't work weekends. So what does that take out of 6 days? So 15 business days, I've gotten 13 visits.
After 26 visits, Purdue's audits have found relatively minor issues with some light bulbs, alarms, water pressure, and slightly raised ammonia levels.
Yeah, I think the focus should be...
6 times they've requested that Craig kill more birds. The visits start to put a strain on Craig's family.
I've had enough. I'm ready for it to be over, and I wish, you know, I would like to move on.
Amelia is worried about Craig and the cost of speaking out against such a powerful industry.
He spends almost every waking hour thinking about this and working on it. He's lost sleep. He's had some mental anguish over all of it. Even, you know, when he's here with family, his mind is on the issues at hand.
It's been an emotional roller coaster. You just never know. You know where the road leads. You just never know. So aggravating.
Dear Craig, we were extremely alarmed and disturbed by the conditions of the chickens entrusted to your care shown in a video released by Compassion and World Farming on December 3rd.
26 days after the video was released, Craig receives a letter from Purdue. Craig has put on a performance improvement plan for the first time in his life.
What exactly does that mean, performance improvement plan?
That means I'm not adhering or living up to their high expectations that they have of contract farmers. I'm a bad farmer.
In the letter, Purdue says it's concerned about how the chickens appeared in the video. Before he could get another flock, he needed biosecurity and animal welfare retraining.
Well, it's I don't want to use the word hurtful, but it does. It's annoying. It's insulting.
Here, nevertheless, can you read that part?
Nevertheless, I take this opportunity to remind you that your growing contract allows you to terminate your relationship with us at any time and seek a contract with another poultry company or use your houses for other business purposes that you may find more rewarding.
So why not go to another company?
Well, they know that that's next to impossible. What am I going to do with 4 chicken barns?
You can't do anything else with a chicken house to produce enough income to pay off these hundreds and hundreds of $1,000s. And they come out and tell poultry growers, okay, you either do what I say or we're pulling your contract. Well, you lose your contract, you lose your farm. I've been asked the question, well, why would a poultry company be or do bad things to a poultry grower? Well, the answer to that is simple. Send a message. You do it to one, you send a message.
Amanda, you there?
Hey, Craig, how are you?
I'm mean as ever. How are you?
Amanda Hitt is from the Government Accountability Project, an organization that defends whistleblowers. She's taken on Craig's case and allows us to record this call.
It certainly appears to me that this type of training is in response to whistleblowing and that it's unneeded and unnecessary. I can certainly say that this seems to me like a type of retaliation.
Purdue says the increased attention was not retribution, but to ensure adequate animal husbandry and animal welfare practices.
You see something?
Ta-da! On our last visit with Craig, he wanted to show us something.
So this top producer Purdue, what does that mean?
Every week you have several farms that go out. Whoever has the lowest cost for that week is recognized as the top producer.
How many of these do you think you've gotten over the years?
I wouldn't even, 30 maybe more. I don't know.
When was the last one?
The video that was made when Leah came, ironically, that was a top producing flock. First 3 or 4 days, you're going to have some inflated mortality. It's just how bad is it?
That's right. Craig says the flock shown in the video, released by the Animal Welfare Group, made him a Purdue top producer.
It's highest in the first.
So that batch of chickens, for that batch, you won top producer, that batch. So what this means is that you're doing a good job, and you're making them money.
Right.
So for Purdue, just in the past few months, you went from being a top producer to what?
Someone who does not raise birds according to Purdue's lofty standards.
Well, after 20 plus years of never having any disciplinary action, never being put on any type of notice for any reason whatsoever, doing everything they've ever asked, going above and beyond in most cases, consistently being a good performer, I expected them to retaliate. Because it's not about being efficient, it's not being about smart, it's not being about good, it's about being pliable. That's what this business is about. These guys are about control.
My God, guys, don't let this thing die. This is what we're going to have. We just have run into a raw deal.
With messages of support pouring in from all around the country, Craig is starting to realize he's not alone. Other farmers want to meet the man who's taking on the chicken industry, so tonight he's heading to Virginia to share his story. But he's reluctant to leave the farm.
It's a very uneasy feeling. I've got a capable helper, and that I'm not worried about. I can leave. It's the not knowing if they're coming and then they don't see me down there, what in the world are they going to write up? I'm a little anxious. I think that's everything. Travel light.
It's a great honor for me to introduce to you Mr. Craig Watts.
Thank you. Thanks, Mike. You know well as I do, we could change this thing in 5 minutes if the farmers will stand together,
But I think the story is if you got 3 farmers in a room, you'd have to shoot 2 of them to get somebody to agree. But maybe I think there's some consensus in this room that, you know, we just have run into a raw deal.
But I experienced more than my share of retaliation from them when I went to Washington. They closed me down right after my name came out in the press release.
If you speak to any facet in the industry, nobody's happy.
No, they're managed the same way we are.
Nobody is happy.
It doesn't need to be this way. It could be fair. I can't help but believe that farmers are going to finally stand up and say, wait a minute, I'm tired of this. These companies have been doing this to us for too long. It's time we do something about it.
I believe in every fiber in my body this thing's going to turn. If I didn't, I wouldn't be here. I just really do.
Well, that's with me. That's why I'm coming in here and trying to do the right thing for everybody, so that one of these days it's going to change.
My God, guys, don't let this thing die. You know what they play? The game they play in West Virginia, count the teeth. Count the teeth.
All right.
Enjoy every time. It's been a long day, and kind of glad to be home. A lot of relief, but I'm just going to satisfy my curiosity and step in here and make sure everything's all right. 4 o'clock in the morning. And they are just as snug as a bug in a rug. So I worried about nothing. But that's what I do, worry.
You're happy you did it?
If I had to go back and go through all this again, absolutely, without hesitation.
What's the worst case scenario? What's the worst thing that could happen now that you've decided to speak out?
That the public doesn't demand better, that the farmers don't finally start to stand up, that I lose. That I lose this fight. That's the worst case outcome, but it's just not an option.